Let me introduce my distinguished panel that's with me today. ABC 24 political analyst Otis Sanford is by my side, easily the tallest political analyst in the city of Memphis. Also, Catherine Burgess, as you see over to my, on the far left over here, a reporter for the Commercial Appeal. And we also have Justin Joy, former chairman for the Shelby County Republican Party. Thanks to everyone for being here today. I want to start, Otis, with this issue of what the state lawmakers are up to. And one of the things that's getting a lot of attention is police residency requirements. They want to make it statewide law that would affect all 95 counties, that no local government can institute any kind of regulation on where they can recruit from. That all local governments should be able to recruit from wherever they want. Of course, no one's happier about this than Mayor Jim Strickland, Sheriff Floyd Bonner, Police Chief C.J. Davis. Where do you think this is going? It seems like it's headed for passage, yes?
Oh, yes, I think it is, Richard. I mean, it has a full head of steam in the legislature. It almost passed last year. I think it got stalled in the House. It has a lot of local sponsors here, Mark White, Brian Kelsey, Paul Rose. They are all on board with this. And as you mentioned, it is supported by Police Chief C.J. Davis, by the Mayor Jim Strickland, by Sheriff Floyd Bonner, and now the City Council, which had been debating this because they were trying to put together a referendum that would expand residency out to 50 miles. They have put all of that on hold because the legislature is going to intervene. I'm loath to say that I support the state again, meddling in local issues. But this is one that should have some vigorous debate. We'll just have to wait and see if that vigorous debate is held in Nashville. They have shown that they don't do very well on debating local issues in the past.
Well, Catherine, let me throw this to you now. I mean, I know that local officials are also loath to have the state do something that they probably should be doing. But in this case, it feels like to me, City Council is absolutely happy to let the state do this, and then they don't have to tackle it, and they can let this be the state's issue, not a local City Council issue. What are your thoughts?
That's a really interesting dynamic to me because no local official likes to be overruled on anything. We saw that recently when we had sweeping legislation in Nashville regarding COVID-19 rules. But on this issue, you have a lot of the city council members, you have Jim Strickland, you have C.J. Davis, and they want this to be passed. And this issue has been percolating with the city council for so many years and going nowhere. So having this at the state legislature, this is really a faster way of getting this through. So even though this is overruling local officials, this is really a faster way of getting it done. And local officials seem to be pretty happy about that.
Justin, you know, this is a great topic for you because there's always this debate within the Republican Party about how much should be local control versus big government. And on this particular issue, again, to Catherine's point, everyone seems to be looking the other way on that larger philosophical point, and they just want to get the job done.
And Richard, it is a philosophical point to a certain degree, and it's always subject to some matter of debate. My personal default is that smaller government is better government, and I personally prefer that my friends and neighbors that live here in the community make decisions based on the unique needs of our community that affect our community. But certainly there are areas, again, getting back to the philosophical aspects of this in determining, you know, what is appropriate for state governance, what is appropriate for federal governments, and then what should be left to the local level. But it does seem like things are on track for this to be determined in Nashville.
We've been talking about this, Otis, I think as long as you and I have known each other. This has been a controversy for quite some time. And really, you cannot mask the problem of just the difficulty law enforcement, first responders, or agencies are having in recruiting new talent.
Well, that's true, Richard. But the fact is, the people who are opposed to getting rid of residency requirements make the point that if police officers are going to enforce laws in certain communities, they need to know a little bit more about the community. I read a study last week where the police department in Minneapolis, where the Derek Chauvin case happened, 94% of those officers don't live in Minneapolis. And that was a key issue here about how do you effectively police in a community that you don't know anything about. I don't know those figures for Memphis. I would dare say it's not nearly 94%, but there's a reason why there are some people out there who just don't feel like someone from, as well-meaning as they may be in Jonesboro or Byhalia or Kosciuszko, Mississippi, coming into Memphis every day to police in the inner city. So I get that. But again, the issue here is about having a pool of candidates who can get the job done. And C.J. Davis made an interesting point in an op-ed that was in both the local newspapers last week, saying that when you need help, you don't really care where the officers live when they go home. And that's a fairly compelling case to be made.
So let me switch gears. One other topic that's somewhat related, Catherine, is this issue of face mask mandates. Dr. Michelle Taylor, who's the director of the Shelby County Health Department, asked the governor to please make an exception for Shelby County so we can issue at least a temporary mask mandate. As we all know, COVID cases are surging big time, perhaps more than ever before. I know that Tennessee is #1 in the country now in cases per capita, so we certainly have the issue, to which the governor's office issued a statement that said, per Tennessee law, government mask mandates are not permitted unless there's a statewide emergency declaration. Newsflash, Governor, you are the one who could declare the statewide emergency declaration. So, you know, he basically rejected the notion, and we have no power to do anything about it as far as the public health is concerned.
Well, not only did the state legislature decide that we need a statewide emergency declaration to set a mask mandate, but they also set a threshold for cases. They said you need at least 1,000 cases per every 100,000 residents in the last past 14 days. And today we had 25,000 known active cases in just Shelby County. So we have an overwhelming number of COVID-19 cases right now, and still the governor would not grant that emergency declaration. And I think what really stands out to me is how earlier in the pandemic, Governor Bill Lee actually supported mask mandates. In July 2020, he issued an executive order granting the mayors of the 89 counties without independent health departments the authority to create mask mandates. And then days later, he made public statements supporting the power of mask mandates. And as that became less politically expedient, that shifted. And now here we are, and even though we're past that threshold, even though people in Shelby County are begging for a mask mandate, here we are, and we can't get one, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, which I'm going to throw it back again to you, Justin, on a philosophical question. I wonder if what your thoughts are about politicians weighing in on medical issues like this, and the kind of the flip-flop that we've seen on behalf of Governor Lee that Catherine's pointing out on the particular issue of mask mandates. I don't think you'd want to be in his position right now, because it's probably no win, because he's going to get it from the right and the left.
And I think that's right, Richard. He's in a tough spot. And I think there's a number of balancing factors here. Again, getting back to this somewhat philosophical debate that can go on about, who has control over what. There's certainly the aspect of uniformity across the state. There's also the public health aspects. And then at the end of the day, there's also the matter of individual liberty. And if you want to wear a mask, I choose to wear a mask, especially when we have the conditions that we have right now. That's my choice, and that's a choice of individual businesses. But I do think that there is some hesitancy in others, especially in the legislature, to impose that across the state of Tennessee, even to the extent of allowing or not allowing local jurisdictions to make those decisions for themselves.
I'll let you have the final word on this.
You know how I feel about this, Richard. I've been saying this ever since this pandemic happened. I think Catherine was really spot on in talking about how the governor has flip-flopped on this. He looks at the political winds here, and he saw that the political winds, especially with the leaders in the legislature, they are opposed to any kind of mandates of any kind, and so he's not going to go against that. I think it's a shame. I think it's a lack of leadership. I wish that we put public health ahead of politics, and that just hasn't happened throughout this pandemic at the state level, and it's certainly not happening now, and I don't expect it to happen going forward in 2022.